Welcome everyone back to yet another episode of The Big Hit. This week we're going to talk some NFL free agency with myself, Joey Chrisman, Will Barbera, Nick Dudowski, and Jeff Hart. Then we'll move on to some NHL, the Mount Rushmore for their favorite team, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and also all time. That's with Mike Costa and also Jake Taylor. And then we'll go to MLB with a Pirates Mount Rushmore and also an MLB all-time Mount Rushmore. All that and more here on The Big Hit. Welcome back to The Big Hit. Here to talk about NFL free agency. Will be joining me is Joey Chrisman, Jeff Hart, myself, Jacob Spagnol, Will Barbera, and Nick Dudowski. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the last time we talked, we were specifically looking at specific players like Nick Foles, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell. Not that those two former Steelers have signed with the Raiders and the Jets. What do we think about their landing spots, their contracts, and how the whole situation went down for them?
I'm going to say that I think they're both complete buffoons. Antonio Brown, I don't know how he can be so forgiving for a man that literally almost took his head straight clean off his neck. And now he's buddy-buddy with Vontaze Burfict, and he can't even forgive the quarterback that made him the Hall of Fame wide receiver that he is today. I think that's just ridiculous. But Antonio Brown, he's old news. He's in Oakland now. He hasn't been running his mouth as much anymore. Le'Veon Bell, on the other hand, he's been going crazy on social media. Originally, he was saying that, I'm sitting out because I want to set the market for running backs of my caliber. Now that he didn't get his money, he is blaming it on the city. He's blaming it on the team. Absolutely selfish and ridiculous. I think, as Mark Madden coined it, they are the terrible twins, the toxic twins. I'm sorry, the toxic twins, and I think that they handled it very immaturely.
I don't know. I think the AB signing, I think it makes the Raiders subpar. Absolutely an upgrade from Jordy Nelson. Gives them a number one receiver on the outside, but it's him. He's their offense. Jared Cook's still a free agent. Derek Carr hasn't shown that he can be consistent. Their offensive line is aging. They just got rid of Khaleesi Osmele. Marshawn Lynch is free agent. I mean, I don't really know what they're doing. They're set up. They have 3 first-round picks. I don't know. I think if they can add some weapons, then maybe this will be good. I think it's ridiculous. Me and Dudowski were talking a while back about how, in God's name, do you make a trade with a team that has 3 first-round picks for the most consistent wide receiver in football and not get a first-round pick from them? A 3rd and a 5th-round pick. That's unbelievable. I mean, and I'm not a Steelers fan, so these guys are probably fired up. Whoever's.
I mean, at least a 2nd and a 3rd. I mean, something more than a 5th.
They have 3 first-round picks. I mean, I don't understand how you allow Antonio Brown, the most consistent wide receiver in football. I'll say it again. I don't know. I don't understand how you trade him. There's definitely teams out there that are willing to give up a first-round pick for him. So I don't understand that.
But from last week, like I said, I saw he was going to the Raiders. We know Gruden's really, that kind of guy. Then with Bell going to the Jets, I also called that as well. The fact that he went to the Jets for less money than what the Steelers were originally going to give him kind of blew my mind. Because like you said, he set out to set the market for running backs, his caliber, but yet took less money for the Jets. Mind you, it's the Jets, one of the worst teams in football right now. So him going there for less money is just weird to me.
What cracked me up was early. I don't know when it was, but it was earlier. Someone tweeted Le'Veon to the Jets. This was before free agency, and he said for $60 million, and he was like, $60 million is not enough to go play for the Jets. Sounds a 5-year, $54 million contract. It doesn't even get the $60 million with the Jets. You just look like an idiot.
I'm going to be a contrarian on a lot of points. AB, and I'm a Steelers fan, is not worth a first-round pick. Regardless of his locker room issues, he's in his 30s. Amari Cooper got a first-round pick. Amari Cooper's in his mid-20s. Odell Beckham, 26. They have quantifiably more years of elite production, AB maybe has 2 or 3. Then he's going to start tapering off, and he'll still be useful. I'm not saying he's not going to be a useful wideout, but we have yet to see a wide receiver because the game is predicated on their speed, athleticism, and drawing, getting distance between you and your defender. AB's not going to have that. I think a second and a third would be a better outcome for the Steelers. I think they could have gotten a second. I don't think there's a team on earth, and I'm sorry, that's a bad business deal. I actually like what the Raiders are doing right now. I gave Chuck a ton of crap. I gave John Gruden crap at the beginning of the season. If those first-round picks come out to be anything, he's actually on the right track. They just re-signed Trent Brown to make up for Osemele, so I actually do like that. And they are getting older, but Trent Brown is a good signing for that offensive line. When it comes to Le'Veon Bell, the Jets, while yes, he did, and if you look at the actual money, he did take less to go to Jets. However, by far more guaranteed. There's I believe it was $25 million guaranteed flat more than any other team was going to offer him. And when you're a running back of that caliber, you're playing a game. Football is a game that you risk your health every single play. And when you're a running back Le'Veon Bell takes more snaps than any running back in the league because he's not only a running back, he's a wide receiver as well. And he was the Steelers' second leading wide receiver in yards last time he played. You need to guarantee yourself more money to guarantee your future. And it's not a laziness thing. And don't get me wrong, I think Bell and Brown have handled themselves in a very poor and unprofessional manner. I'm more mad at the Steelers for not getting more for Bell, actually. And I talked about this on Sports Talk Live. Listen every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 4 to 5 on 90.1 WIEP-FM. The Steelers basically threw away this season on Bell because Bell, at the beginning of the season with contract talks, said, I will come back and play if you don't franchise tag me. The Steelers said, no, we're going to franchise tag you. So the Steelers basically said, okay, we're going to throw away our best chance at winning because we're going to kind of stick it to the league and set the precedent that Le'Veon Bell's not going to, tight arm us into a deal that he wants. So I feel like that part of the blame is on the Steelers. We are poorly managed from time to time. Kevin Colbert with the comments about, the 52 kids and Ben Roethlisberger, who has a checkered past himself, which I hate the fact that the Steelers are making Ben out like he's some saint. And don't get me wrong. Don't let any of this make you believe that I'm saying Bell and Brown are scratch free on this. They have definitely done their egregious acts, but the Steelers are not as, premier as people bring them out to be and not the perfect organization. And I'm a Steelers fan, and I'm saying that.
But with all things considered, you also guys mentioned how he's buddy-buddy with Vontaze Burfict now, the former Bengal, and Kelechi Osemele from the Raiders actually went to the Jets. So with each of those teams getting new players, the Jets also get C.J. Mosley and Jamison Crowder, which are two nice pieces for Sam Darnold to work with. Well, not C.J. Mosley, but either way, with those two organizations, even not considering A.B. and Brown, but everything they've gotten so far, are those two teams contenders for the playoffs next year?
I say absolutely not. I don't think the Jets have a chance. C.J. Mosley definitely a nice pickup. They also got Osemele, like you said, so that's what Sam Darnold lacked last year, was a good offensive line. That's support for Le'Veon too as well in the backfield. You got to remember the New York Jets are in a division with Tom Brady. Like, he's literally the GOAT. Although the rest of the division might not be up to par, the Bills and the Dolphins definitely are not going to be contenders next year by any means. The Jets, there's no way they can compete with Tom in the same division as Tom Brady. The Raiders, however, they could compete. They put together a good enough squad where they'll be competitive. LaMarcus Joyner was a huge pickup for them. Their secondary was very poor last year, so I think that was a great pickup by them. The division's just too tough for them. Kansas City Chiefs coming off a 13-3 season. The Chargers are about to rebound even better. They've got a nice young defense. So I just don't think there's any chance that either of these teams could make the playoffs next year.
I completely agree. I mean, Oakland, their defense was so egregious last year. I like the LaMarcus Joyner signing. We'll see what happens with Vontaze Burfict. I never thought he was that good of a player to begin with. But we'll see. It's linebacker depth. They need pass rushers. I mean, the Gruden's come out and said, they've tried to defend the Khalil Mack trade and say that was the right thing for them. And if they go in the draft and they draft a stud pass rusher, then they can say that. But right now, I mean, with Mario Edwards and I don't even know who else they have. There's no one else to get after the quarterback, and you had arguably the best pass rusher in the league in Khalil Mack. So with their defense out the way it is, and we already talked about how Antonio Brown is really their only offensive weapon at this point. I don't see them making the playoffs. And with the Jets, I mean, I don't see them making the playoffs just because, like Dadowski already said, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, just won their 6th Super Bowl. Who knows if Brady didn't look as dominant as he did in previous years. I think it just kind of depends on how the Patriots do this year. and there's no indicators that would say they would, be anything other than what they've always been. So I don't see either of these teams making the playoffs.
I agree with the Raiders. I think they're a few pieces short. I think their line still needs a little bit of help. They obviously need another wide receiver or tight end to go to because you can't have one offensive threat on the offensive side of the ball because you can just double team AB. And AB will get past double teams, but not as efficiently if you don't have another guy. That's why AB works so well as a tandem, whether it was with Martavis Bryant or Juju Smith-Schuster. I think the Jets could sneak in as a wild card simply because the Patriots are in their division. I don't see them at all getting a divisional, first round bye. You're forgetting, they already had Anderson, who's a pretty good wideout. Then they added Jamison Crowder, who's proven he is a good, serviceable wide receiver. So definitely a solid second slot, definitely a slot or a second wideout. Then on the defense, you had C.J. Mosley, who is definitely and by far was the Ravens' best linebacker. I mean, other than Terrell Suggs, which was just more pass rushing, and they put him in on pass rushing downs. C.J. Mosley can cover and do things and help that defense, and he brings an aspect of leadership, which is what you need when you're a young, struggling organization. And I'm not betting on them doing it. I'm saying there's a chance if they can put it together, because Le'Veon Bell vastly improves your offense. Because people forget, when you don't have a running game and you're the passing game, all they have to do is just game plan against that. But now, and not only just with the rushing with Le'Veon Bell, the play option that they're going to have now with Anderson, who's a deep threat in him, they can run a ton of play option with him. So they might be able to throw opponents off because they don't know what's going to be coming at them. But I think the Raiders, because of how hard their division is, because other than the Patriots, that division is not very hard for the Jets. When you're in that division, the Chiefs obviously are good. The Chargers are good. I mean, Denver's competitive. It's not like they're a scrub team. They're 8-8, 9-7, 7-9 team. I call them like a tweener team. They can't. They're not bad, but they're not good. They're just kind of stuck in between. So.
And they just got Wacko Flacco. So.
I mean, to me, I feel like that's just such a lateral move to me. I feel like he's not that much better than Keenum in his old age.
I would say the Raiders. No, because like you said, guys, they're going to, the Chiefs, the Chargers. The Jets, I would say yes because of Bell, but don't forget about his history with injuries. He injured his knee, twice in 2 years. In the past, since he's been drafted in 2013, he's played maybe 3 full seasons from injuries, and don't forget the drugs. Don't forget about that because, he could probably bring that to the Jets as well. He's a person who brings drama. He's a person who brings trouble. He could get injured, go down like that, then the Jets are back where they were, square one. He can, do drugs again, and then, he's in the 4-game suspension. But again, the Jets are in the division with the Patriots. I don't really see them. Maybe the wild card, maybe not. We'll see. I really don't think so, though.
Yeah. But for a team that could potentially make the playoffs in a wild card and keep the Jets out, or just maybe even win the division, depending on things, the Browns have been extremely busy this offseason. Given away a lot for OBJ, but they've also picked up Demetrius Harris, Sheldon Richardson. But their whole offense has Baker Mayfield, OBJ, and Jarvis Landry, Njoku, and 2 really good running backs in Chubb and Kareem Hunt after he gets back from his 8-game suspension. So where do we see the Browns landing in general, or how do we think their season's going to go from here?
I think they're definitely going to make the playoffs. Because when you have, Baker Mayfield, who was close to winning Rookie of the Year, and you add, you had Jarvis Landry, but now you have Odell Beckham. Jarvis and Odell played football at LSU. I think they're definitely a playoff contender. They probably might even win the AFC North. As a Steelers fan, it's kind of hard for me to say that because you never expected the Browns to ever win the AFC North ever. But I think they have a pretty good chance of doing that this year.
I'm going to be bold. They're winning the AFC North. I think the Steelers will give them a hard time. I think the Steelers could potentially win the AFC North if everything comes together because of the chemistry. But with the amount of pieces they lost, I don't think it's one of those years where we can say, yeah, it's either going to be the Steelers or the Ravens. I think the Ravens took a big step down because they just lost both of their best linebackers, including their best pass rusher. They added Mark Ingram and Earl Thomas, which are nice. But Earl Thomas, we don't know with health if he's good because he replaced Eric Weddle. And he's a big step up from Eric Weddle when healthy. But they just lost their linebackers, and they don't have a wide receiver to throw to, and you have a quarterback who can't throw. The Bengals are the definition of mediocrity. I don't even need to get into that or prove that. Marvin Lewis was a horrendous head coach. I don't need to get into the Bengals. The Steelers lost a lot of pieces. The Browns, while I understand the biggest argument against them is the fact that they have big personalities. Baker Mayfield, OBJ, Jarvis Landry, Kareem Hunt, all that stuff. First off, I don't think OBJ and Jarvis are going to have problems because they went to high school and college together. They're best friends. Baker Mayfield loves Odell Beckham. He works out with him in the offseason. To me, the only reason I foresee the Cleveland Browns offense not being prolific is simply because Freddie Kitchens is an unproven, proves to not be a good head coach, or Baker Mayfield takes some big second-year regression, because we see that from a lot of second-year players, that they regress in their second year because people have the film on you now. They see what you're good at. They've played against you before. What you're going to do to stop them, sort of thing. So I think the Browns have a definite easy route to win the division.
I think that they should win the division on paper. I think this is the best. If it's not the best team, it's the best offense in the AFC North. Anybody that says Baltimore's going to win this division really needs to be convinced that Lamar Jackson is the real deal. And I want to see the decision making. I want to see the arm. I hate it when people compare him to Michael Vick. Michael Vick had one of the best arms I've seen in a long time. I mean, he just had an absolute cannon, and he didn't prioritize running over throwing the ball. That's one thing I don't like about Lamar Jackson's game. But anyway, I'm not getting into all that right now. It's hard for me to picture Cleveland winning the division because it's Cleveland. It's one of those things where they won't win the division because they should win the division. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I think the offense is an absolute lethal unit. So we'll see. But they should win this division.
Jimmy Haslam, you cannot fool me. I know what your franchise is. Your franchise is a complete dumpster fire. Yeah, sure, they're signing all these flashy players. They've got Kareem Hunt, they've got Odell Beckham Jr., they've got Juice, they've got Baker. This looks like a team that is they've got a bright future, right? Screw that. They are not doing crap this year. Freddie Kitchens has never coached professionally. He's never been a head coach professionally before, so he has zero experience. There is no offensive line, so who's going to be protecting Baker Mayfield? Who's going to be protecting Nick Chubb? How is he going to have time to get the ball to Odell Beckham Jr.? How is he going to be able to have time to throw the ball downfield to his playmakers? I don't think that's going to work. I think the Steelers filled enough gaps over the offseason. I think they still have some pieces to get during the draft, but I think the Steelers are taking the division. I know what this franchise is. I've seen this my entire life. The Browns have been a complete mistake in my entire lifetime. I've never seen them have a winning season, so I'm saying that this is the Browns are just they're burnt toast.
I'm ashamed of the homerism I'm seeing right now, and I'm a Steelers fan.
I'm
You're confusing the
even
Browns
saying-
for the Cowboys. The Cowboys are a mistake waiting to happen, in the words of Stephen A. The Browns have not had a core.
More in my entire life. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, you're being and I'm a Steelers fan. Don't get me wrong. I can't stand the Cleveland Browns. But on paper,
I'm not saying they won't compete. I'm saying the Browns, they'll still be good. They'll be competitive, but they're not going to win the AFC North. This team, Ben Roethlisberger,
but you have to
has
take
too
one
much
thing into
experience.
account. You said how they've been terrible over the tenure of
Right.
the last 20 plus years. They haven't been to the playoffs since 2002. This is the first time we've seen a quarterback come back in 2 consecutive years and have somewhat of a successful season last year. That was a first. And you're talking about the point you made about Baker not having time to get out of the pocket. Okay, they had the same offensive line situation last year with less, and they almost
lost
had.
They lost their best offensive lineman.
They lost it.
But still, regardless to me, they could then try to do more of a spread scheme because you have less of an offensive line. They could try to, spread it out a little bit more. And you could do that when you have 2 elite wide receivers and a running back who, Nick Chubb, I wouldn't call him elite, but I'd call him good.
You can't fool me. I know what the Browns are. I've seen it my entire life. The Browns are not. This is. Eventually they'll be good. They have the potential to be good. I think they don't have enough pieces on the offensive line to successfully let this offense reach its potential.
Yeah, it's going to be, and especially, it's weird for people that don't really look in on what pieces they've gotten, what they've been doing. On paper, the Browns do look so much superior than the rest of the team, but this is the first time I think the Steelers are being considered underdogs, which is kind of strange. So I think for sure, by a narrow margin, the Steelers still win the division because they have so much more experience. But the Browns could sneak in as a wild card. I don't think they win the division, but it could be interesting. But other than how you guys mentioned Eric Weddle, I don't think he's one of the best players out there, but he definitely could fill a spot on a team. There's also, I believe, Ndamukong Suh is a free agent right now, so he could also go somewhere. Granted, they're both older, but are there any current players who haven't been signed yet that you think are definitely going to a team before we get to the beginning of the season?
Right now, I think the Steelers are trying to work on a deal with Justin Houston. He is old, but don't forget he's a decent pass rusher. He's a veteran guy who's shown that he can get the quarterback. He's been on the Chiefs for how long? Maybe 9.
I think he was there 6-7 years. I don't think he just has more of an injury problem, I think.
T.J. Watt, he's good, but Bud Dupree is not. He's had 5 sacks every season the past 2 years. He's not good, and they just restructured his contract, but he's not good at all. They need Justin Houston, and I really hope they get him because he'll be a key part of the defense, which the Steelers need without Shazier. If he doesn't play outside linebacker, he can hopefully play inside linebacker. because they need another linebacker.
He's a pass rusher. He's not going to
Either
play
way,
linebacker.
they
Yeah.
need another linebacker.
I mean, they've just picked up Mark Barron. Mark Barron's a pretty solid
That
guy
is
that
a
just came
good
out of
sign.
Rams.
It's a very good sign.
He is a hybrid
He's one of-
linebacker. I think he's underrated. He can cover and blitz. I like
Right.
Mark Barron. But I do like your point because Bud Dupree is underdeveloped, has underachieved, and we have yet to put a second pass rusher to TJ Watt. However, I'm going to go with mine, Marshawn Lynch. Frank Gore can get signed to another team. Marshawn Lynch definitely deserves to be signed because I think one of the most underrated and underutilized abilities on a team is a 3rd and 1 kind of guy. You will get that in Marshawn Lynch. I think Marshawn Lynch isn't a number 1 back anymore. He's too old, he's injury prone, and he has a lot of miles on those legs. He's been playing for years. But think about the Eagles when they won their Super Bowl. I know we got a lot of Eagles fans on set and where we live now. They had LeGarrette Blount. Because LeGarrette Blount on those 3rd and 1s or 3rd and a few or 3rd and goal could just punch it in. People forget you can have like the guy, the quickster can do that, get you all these yards. But what you gonna do when it's 3rd and 1? No one wants to pass in the end zone. You get a guy like Marshawn Lynch, just punch it in. That's why he's so
No,
useful.
you actually throw it at the 1-yard line.
I mean that's for a different debate, but.
Yeah.
But I think he's a perfect secondary back, a guy you just kind of plug and play into certain scenarios.
I agree. I can't believe that Ndamukong Suh isn't signed yet. I mean, this guy. I mean, this is one of the most dominant interior defensive linemen of the past decade for sure. I understand he's getting older, but it's one of those things where he was still a terrific interior defender last year. He's not going to put up the sack numbers, especially playing next to a guy like Aaron Donald. Where a guy, we've seen maybe 5 players like Aaron Donald in the history of the league up front. So. It's one of those things where I don't know. I feel like the guy just helped a very young team get to a Super Bowl. They played awful in that Super Bowl, but I don't know. I feel like there's still some appeal to his game that I just don't understand why he isn't signed.
I agree completely. I think Ndamukong Suh is the biggest name on the free agent market right now, and I think he'd be a great fit with the Seattle Seahawks or the Minnesota Vikings.
I would love to see him in Seattle. That'd be great.
But I'm not going to repeat what you said, so I'm going to go with Eric Berry. I know he's probably played less games than he has, he's played less games than he has in the last 3 seasons. But this is a high caliber safety. He's going to be a Dallas Cowboy probably. Like that's just typically what happens
sucks because I like him, but
with big free agents, with late in free agency, they just end up Jerry Jones just signs him. But yeah, I'll go with that. I'll go with Eric Berry.
All right. And, that's a lot. I'm really glad you guys could join me to talk about all that. But everything considered, thank you all so much for watching. Once again, this has been NFL with Joey Chrisman, Jeff Hart, myself, Jake Spagnol, Will Barbera, and Nick Dodowski. Catch us next time. We'll probably talk about more free agency and the draft that'll be coming up soon. But for now, stay tuned for our next segment. Here we go.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to The Big Hit. And right now we're going to have a quick little IUP basketball segment between me and none other than Steven Langdon. We're just going to be talking about the men's and women's season as a whole and their postseason success. So to start things off, Steven, let's kind of talk about the men's team a little bit. What did you think of their season?
Their season, I think it's going to go down as a very productive season, but falling a little short of expectations. They really entered the season with high expectations considering they have a lot of seniors this year. And overall, like I said, fantastic regular season. It's just that Mercier's got in their way in the final game, and I think that's going to be the one thing that Coach Lombardi takes into next season.
Well, you talked about productive and all, and I have to agree. I mean, the team was great. They had only after the loss to Mercier, they were unstoppable. In all honesty, it seems like no one could beat them at that point in the regular season.
The third time they played them this season, which was in the PSAC
Championship. About to say, I mean, they looked like they couldn't be stopped. But the one thing I said religiously throughout the season, and I feel like when we talk about the postseason, this is one of the main reasons they lost to Mercyhurst, and that's the reliance on Kobo. When you have a player like Kobo, it's so easy to rely too much on him, and he's such a great player. He astronomically improves any basketball program, and he's one of the best in the PSAC. He was top 10 in 13 statistical categories for the PSAC. I mean, I don't have to say anything about, his credence as a basketball player. He's stupendous, and I hope maybe basketball opens up some opportunities for him after his collegiate career. But we saw in that Mercyhurst game in the playoffs where they lost to them, Kobo was limited to 4 points. And yes, Mercyhurst is the best defense in PSAC, but
second best defense in the country as well.
I was about to say, so Mercyhurst, obviously, they're no joke, but 4 points. And Kobo's no joke as an offensive player.
5 shots taken. That's all he took all game long. 5 shots. Although Jason Massey for Mercyhurst.
Credit where credit's due.
Jason Massey for Mercyhurst. He was an absolute stud the entire season. We knew heading into the games that he was going to be a very tough opponent. And wow, him and Patrick Smith.
I was about to
for
say, and didn't he take
Mercyhurst.
31 shots that game?
He took 31 shots in the first round of the Atlantic region, but then just overall, just a fantastic player. He made it to the all-regional team. Both him and Patrick Smith for Mercyhurst made it in. But unfortunately, no IUP players. It's usually the top 2 teams that make it the all-regional. But just you have to give credit to Mercyhurst. They played with IUP every single game, and it was just.
Well, and I also want to get a point going when you talk about the other players for IUP. Like, I feel like we're a very microwave team, and what I mean by that is like when one player's feeling it, it's like everyone else feeds off it and they're feeling it. But if someone's having a bad game, I feel like a lot of people feed off that. Like Dante, when he had that great postseason stretch, he had a 33-point game, tied his career high, hit all these threes, only missed 2 threes in that entire game. I mean, he was on fire. The team was feeding off it. And Dante got better shooting 3 as the season progressed. He got way more consistent at it because we all knew he had the range. It was a matter of finding the confidence and keep on shooting it, and he did. But what we saw in that game against Mercyhurst, when the inside game was taken away by Kobo and Dante wasn't having like one of those amazing, world beater games, the rest of the team didn't look as strong. I mean, Malik was 1 of 8 to start the game. I mean,
Malik did not look well whatsoever, and he had his head down the majority of the game, even going so far to argue with Chucky Humphreys. And I know they're 2 very good friends, but then when you're seeing them argue, it doesn't look good for a team. And when you have one of your top scorers not as effective and, arguing with teammates, not to say that he didn't have a reason to be mad at himself, because I'm sure frustration took its toll, and, it's a long season, but just overall, just didn't look good throughout that entire game. And when you're having so many good games in a row and then you have one bad game, you're like, what did I do wrong? And I think that was one of the big things for Malik, is that he just had one of those days.
Well, and we're kind of trending more towards playoffs right now, and I kind of want to switch the gear towards that. Obviously PSAC playoffs, IUP had a lot of success winning the PSAC playoffs, beating a lot of great teams, whether it be Westchester or Mercyhurst. They did a really stupendous job getting to where they were, won that one, really had a great game against Mercyhurst. Low scoring affair, so you got to give Mercyhurst credit. They held IUP down. They way below their team minimum, way below their team average in scoring. So obviously defense playing a role, but Jason Massey wasn't feeling it that game, or IUP did a good job of shutting him down defensively that game. His hook shot wasn't going in, and you and I both talk about how just amazing and effective his hook shot is. And Jake, who commentates the game with me, Jake was talking about how just that hook shot is deadly. No one can beat it. And I think that's such a key for Mercyhurst is shutting down the paint with them, because if they get the advantage in the paint, they got you. Because you're not going to stop Patrick Smith. There's no way. He's a walking 20 and 10.
Yeah, he was the Atlantic Regional Player of the game, player of the tournament, and deservingly so, because he had 17 rebounds and I think 15 points
and 5 blocks.
Yeah, and 5 blocks in that game because they went on to win the Atlantic Regional, so they're in the Elite 8. But he was just. Well, it's a man amongst boys.
Yeah, that was the best comparison we could draw in the broadcast. And, when IUP faced them, when we're back in the Atlantic Regional playoffs now, they played them again the 4th time this season. A lot of people were frustrated saying, oh my gosh, it's the same matchup we've been seeing all year. But there was a part of us that was excited because ooh, who's going to take it this time? And it appeared Mercyhurst got the upper hand in that one. Coach Manchel did a great job. We got to talk to him in the post-game interview. He said he'd watched the tape 17 times, which I honestly believe him because Coach Manchel does his homework, a highly respected coach. What did you see from IUP that led to their downfall? Because we know how talented of a squad they are. They have a great coach. They have great players, great leadership. What kind of caused their downfall for you?
I think the biggest takeaway from this season, and it hurt them all season long, rebounding. They have Willem Brunwick. They had Kravacevic, both standing at 6'9", and then you have Diaz, who stands at 6'8", and they couldn't rebound in some games. We saw against Westchester several times throughout the season that they just were getting out-rebounded, and by a decent amount, too. It wasn't just 2 or 3. It was by 7, 8. And I think when you can't rebound and when you're giving up a lot of offensive rebounds, because I know Willem's he's a tall dude, but like sometimes he just won't pick up the rebounds on defense. And I don't know what the reasoning is for, but sometimes you just get out-muscled, outplayed, and a great player. But I think if he worked on his rebounding game just that little bit more, he would have had a productive season at the very least.
Well, I think the biggest downfall for IUP, and I'm going to use an example which I feel is kind of a microcosm of the problem that I've seen all season long, and that's both matchups, for Westchester and the Lakers, both times, because, the Atlantic Regionals was a repeat of the PSAC playoffs for the Crimson Hawks. They played Westchester.
Well, 4 teams from the PSAC entered the regional.
Absolutely, and the PSAC had strong representation. It's a great, great division. A lot of great teams in there. But, what I saw from that game, IUP needs to do and like you said with Brunswick, we have the size, but we don't seem to utilize the paint as much as we should. We don't have, shut down defenders in the paint. We don't, it seemed to me at times we didn't want to hustle as hard to get those rebounds, or our focus necessarily wasn't on rebounding. That wasn't a primary focus, or locking down the paint. Because when you look at the teams that give them a hard time, look at Westchester. In that first half, Westchester out-rebounds IUP almost every single time, except for that matchup in the Atlantic Regional. That was the one time they didn't. They out-rebounded us 2-1 in the previous 2 matchups. 2-1. I mean, almost. Not exactly, but almost 2-1 at that point. And they gave them a hard time in that first half because they would just crash the boards and then get all their points almost consecutively from the paint. They shot 17% in, I believe, the PSAC playoff matchup, which if Westchester had an an outside game, they would have given IUP a run for their money in that matchup, and they gave them a hard time in that first half. IUP, if they're not feeling it from 3, because the thing is with shooting, some nights you're not on. Some nights you get Dante Lombardi who drops 33 on you that night, and then there's other nights where you got players who just aren't feeling it. It's one of those things that you're not going to come out every night and have the biggest game of your career. And when you rely on the 3-point game, you kind of need a ton of guys who can just feel it every night. That's why we've seen it with the Golden State Warriors. They've surrounded themselves with guys who, even if 1 or 2 guys are off, the other guys will carry the load. But really the only 3 we have Dante, Malik, and Armoni Foster, who are 3, you really got to worry about it. And Kobo. Kobo hits them, proficiently 36%. But they don't lock down the paint, rebounding, and that's what killed them with Mercyhurst. They would send Massey inside, and every time momentum would start to shift, Massey would hit a shot. And Coach Manchel did his homework and was smart and realizes that IUP rides momentum a lot. At about the 15-minute mark in the first half, they go on this great offensive run to come back from the lead that the other team had built, because they always come out a little sluggish, then they come swinging. So
yeah, it's right after that first media timeout that
they usually start coming back.
Yeah, and I think that goes into coaching too. Coach Lombardi, in that Mercyhurst game, he really couldn't change anything, because when you're not able to score at will, like they have been all season long, then what do you really do? Because, like you said, when we don't have Malik hitting shots, Dante did not have a good game whatsoever.
I mean, he had an okay game, but he could definitely had some to improve on. He could have improved on his shot percentage, but definitely got up points. I mean, scoring in the double digits. So it's not like he was by bad
he wasn't his regular
He
self.
wasn't his postseason we had seen all year to that point, Dante.
Because at that point, as a coach, you're like, okay, well, my 3 best scorers are struggling a little bit here. What do I do?
Well, and one thing I was a little not questioning, because obviously by no means am I a coach or I have any coaching experience. It's a lot harder, and by no means when anyone's watching this think that we know better, but just from our viewpoint, because we watch every single game, so we have a very good idea of what each player is capable of due to the tutelage of Coach Lombardi. When they had Chucky Humphreys on Massey couldn't score. Will Humphreys had a couple of blocks on Massey. I like the defensive matchup with Massey on Humphreys rather than Kobo. They couldn't seem to, I wish Humphreys was in the game more, because Humphreys was scoring pretty well. At one point he had 13 points. I mean, he was doing pretty good. So I wish they would have kept him in a little longer, and I felt like that might have made a big difference, but credit to Mercyhurst. They really just played an outstanding game. And
I mean, they have a tough matchup now. They have to go play against one of the toughest teams in the country. I think they have to play the number 1 team in the country. So good luck for them, and that's really all you could say.
But switching over to the women's side of things, the women are still in this, moving on to the Elite 8, won their Atlantic.
Second year in a row.
Yep.
Second year in a row that they're moving on to this stage.
Absolutely. They won their Atlantic Regional tournament, beating Cal U. That was that seemed to be their kryptonite this season. Cal U beating them every time in the matchup. Just in the PSAC playoffs, did not have to see them. Kutztown got rid of the Vulcans, so the Crimson Hawks did not have to see them in the PSAC playoffs, so that was definitely a bonus for them. But in the Atlantic Regional tournament, they played amazing defense, limiting the Vulcans to less than 10% from three.
Yeah, they had .07, so 7% from the three-pointer is never going to win you a game. And IUP just outshot them. They shot close to 50%, I think 49% for the game. And Brittany Robinson was really a stellar player for them in the Atlantic Regional. She went on to go as the player of the tournament, or player of the regional, and just a stellar job. She averaged a double-double in the Atlantic Regional. So great job for her. And this women's team is just phenomenal.
Absolutely, and the support and love they have for each other, you know, in the interview we had with Carolyn Appleby for TPSN, she said it's a family atmosphere, and we got to see that because during the broadcast in Com 360 for IUP TV Sports, you know, it was great because we got to see a view. They were all sitting in their hotel watching the men's game. The support they have is just great. And, you know, the one thing I want to talk about their season as a whole, they came out strong. I mean, it looked like no one could beat them. But when Cal U came around, that all changed. And then suffering that last, you know, that senior night loss that they had towards the end of the season.
You really thought it was going to be the downfall from there because you're dominating teams all season long. You're winning by double digits just about every time. And then you have just senior night happen, and you're like, are they really going to make it this far? Because you know the talent is there. And you know you have the players and the capability to move far. They have the experience. You have everything that you want. But then you saw on senior night, they just, in a way, collapsed. But then they come out strong in the Atlantic Regional, and they're just knocking off teams left to right center. And it's just like, now they can compete for a national championship once again. Last year they had Ashland, who averaged over 100 points, and they had to play. They were the number 1 seed, but now they're on the other side. So the number 1 seed, if they're going to play the number 1 seed now, they have to go to the national championship game. And right now they're in a very good position, I would say.
Well, and you know, talking about their season, I think one of the big focal points to bring them out of that late season slump they had, they dropped from number 2 to number 13. They really took it down after losing to Seton Hill on senior night. And then the heart-wrenching realization that they had to play Seton Hill in a playoff matchup that same week again. And a lot of people were counting them out because Seton Hill had just beaten them. They didn't look the same. A couple of their players didn't have great games, but they came back and beat Seton Hill. I think that was the thing that got them their confidence back, and they started to look like the Crimson Hawks that we saw in the beginning of the season. You know, we saw a lot of, we saw a ton of players really step up this season, whether it be Anna Holland or Courtney Alexander. There's a lot of those women are very talented and could come off the bench, and just a really skilled group as a whole.
I think the one thing you pointed at the Seton Hill and the PSAC playoffs, but I want to say when they played Kutztown in the PSAC championship game, because that was happening prior to the men's game, and they were down for a good amount of that first half. They were down by, I think, double digits going into that second half, and then all of a sudden they slowly but surely came back, and it was like a completely different team. They dominated Kutztown in every way, shape, and form in that second half, and I think that was the big motivator, because they're like, okay, we're back to where we need to be. And Coach McConnell, great coach in his own right.
Absolutely. We got to interview both the coaches for IPTV Sports. They were really great, down-to-earth guys, gave us some inside perspectives. And, you know, the only thing with the women's team we had complaint with all season was just sometimes as we felt towards the end of the games when they were blowing out teams, they were using too many of their starters. But obviously Coach McConnell, knowing what he's doing, his players are resilient, haven't seen too many injuries plague the Hawks and really play any part of it, really.
Yeah, the only injury that they had was Mardiana, who went down with an injury very early on in the season. She was out for the rest of the year. But I think overall, like you said, they're playing a lot of their starters. But a good thing that they have this nice little break, because they've been playing their starters for over 30 minutes throughout the entire regional. And so you got this like little bit of a break. You know, they don't play until next week, or I think this weekend. But just overall, you have this nice little break. You get to rest. You get to do a lot of film studying on their next opponent, Azusa Pacific. And I think now that you don't have to travel as much, you're going to be going to Columbus too. So it's not a huge drive for them. So I think they're going to look strong. You know, going into this Elite Eight, have the experience, have the players, have the talent. They just have to do it.
Absolutely, and they proved it last year getting to the Final Four. So this women's team under Coach McConnell has proven time and time again that they are a terrific squad, and we wish them nothing but the best. Congratulations to both the men's and the women's team. Great accomplishments thus far in the season, and hopefully we continue to see that success here from the Lady Hawks. But that's going to do it for me and Steven. So we'll be coming at you next time, hopefully, for some different IUP sports once the basketball season fully wraps up. And stay tuned and keep on listening, everybody.
Success. We see it every day. Choose from hundreds of majors and programs. Learn from faculty truly committed to you and your success today and tomorrow. And join 120,000 alumni in thousands of careers all over the world, ready to help you find your way. I'm IUP President Mike Driscoll, and I invite you to apply now and find your success at Indiana University of Pennsylvania.
Welcome in to the NHL segment with Mike Costa
What up?
and myself. I'll take this to start the things off.
No, you're cheating. Dude. Those are my notes. Hey, Stat Mike is all in effect. We're doing the Mount Rushmore. We got the Mount Rushmore, the Penguins players. I got the Penguins jersey to represent it. And it's going to be a good one, dude.
It's going to be good, dude. I came really prepared with a good set of notes, so I'm really ready to get this Mount Rushmore
cheat off you real quick.
No,
we got a little bit of time before playoffs. We'll do a little bit of a picture for that if we got time. But we've got a nice little.
We got a nice beard. We got nice hair.
I got a nice Mount Rushmore. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah.
Best 4 players for the Penguins. You can go ahead and take
Best 4. Old Mount Rushmore, not even players, dude. Just in personal opinion, like who do you think the most iconic and the most influential, important people were to the entire franchise. Right. So for me, I'm taking a little bit of a different angle to this. Not really. This is just in my opinion. Truthfully, quite frankly, am I grateful for the 2 cups that Lemieux won? Yes. However, I've never seen him play, so I could give a rat's butt about him.
That's right.
Straight up, first one on top. If I could make if this was possible, I'd have all 4 Sidney Crosby. Obviously, that's a stupid question. But Sidney Crosby's definitely on it. Gino Malkin. Now, hear me out here. Just hear me out.
Wait, hold on. Okay, go ahead.
All right.
I had to listen.
All right, yeah. Jim Rutherford, general manager, GMJR. He is up there for reasons that I'm going to get to soon. That's right here, yours. And the 4th, Matt Murray.
It's good. Matt Murray, really?
Yeah.
All-time Penguins players, Matt Murray.
Matt Murray, Gino, Sid, Jim Rutherford. Changed my mind.
Out of the whole
Changed
history.
my mind.
Wow, okay. So I'm going to pick this apart. George W., Tom Jefferson, Theo Roosevelt, and Abe Lincoln. My George is none other than Mario Lemieux. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me tell you what. Best of the best, obviously. A little fun fact for you. We'll do a little bit of history lesson, too. A history lesson with
teach
Mike.
me.
So, little fun fact. George Washington was the only president to go into battle. Did you know that? Well, you know that now.
I know that now.
And another fun fact that you probably knew this. Mario Lemieux was the only owner to go into the battle with the Pittsburgh Penguins because he was on the team as the owner.
Oh,
you know
wow.
what I'm saying there? Exactly.
Wow.
So, another thing, both 6'3", about 200 pounds. He's like 200 points away from Yager, Messier, and Gordie Howe, but he's got half as many games. So that's pretty nuts there, bud. You know what I'm
crazy.
saying? Next up, we got Tom Jefferson, who I'm attributing to Gino Malkin. And I'll tell you this, they both had 2 iconic sentences. Thomas Jefferson is known to have one of the most prolific and amazing sentences of all time in American history. Mm-hmm. And a little paraphrase, the best sentence was, we had these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Mm-hmm. You know what Gino said?
What did he say?
He said, I am score. And that's why he's on my Mount Rushmore, because everybody knows Gino by that sentence. It was in Carolina in the playoffs. He had a hat trick, 1,000 points, 600 assists, 4th Russian to do that, 3 cups. Kind of a big deal, you know what I'm saying?
Huge deal.
Next up, we got Theo Roosevelt. I'm giving that to Marc-Andre Fleury. This one gets a little deep. You got to follow me with this one.
I'll follow you. You got to convince me.
So Theo Roosevelt, he was doing a speech in 1912, and he got shot.
All right.
But you don't remember the shot. You remember him living through that, and he was speaking on behalf of the Bull Moose Party. Not too sure what that is. I gotta talk to my stat guys on that one. But he was speaking on behalf of them, and so everybody remembers him as being up on the stage. And he continued the speech, and he said, "No one takes out a bull moose." So to tie this into Marc-Andre Fleury, everybody knows that Nick Lidstrom shot Marc-Andre Fleury, but they remember the save because in 2009, the Penguins won the Stanley Cup against Nick Lidstrom, and he had the iconic save that everybody knows. It's the pinnacle of his career. It's what everybody knows. 400 wins, 33 years old, second youngest to do it, 3 cups, took Vegas to the cup. Number 1 in wins, saves, shutouts. Number 2 in save percentage, goals against. That's all to Yahoo.com. Thank you, Yahoo.com, for that. for the Penguins.
Your stat team.
That's right. And to finish this all off, everybody knows this Penguins player. He's got a great mustache, I'll tell you that much. Rick Kehoe. You know Rick Kehoe?
No.
Neither do I. But Abraham Lincoln is who I'm giving Rick Kehoe to. Right wing, 1974 to 1985. Abraham Lincoln, history lesson for you. He was a shopkeeper, a little surveyor action in there. He was a postman, split wood as a lumberjack. And I don't know if you knew this, but he was also a president.
Yeah, never told a lie.
That's right. And so that's my other point. So Rick Kehoe he won the NHL Lady Byng Trophy for gentlemanly conduct and high playing ability. He also was the front office in the Penguins organization. He was a scout. He was an assistant coach and the heads coach on top of being a player. So both pretty versatile guys, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, wow.
And you said honest Abe. And that brings me to our next point. An honest guy, you know, he doesn't go out of his way and hurts his team. You know, he stays on the ice. You know, he's true to himself. Rick Kehoe, in 14 seasons, had only 120 penalty minutes. So he stayed truthful to his team. And to put that into perspective, Evander Kane has 151 penalty minutes this season. And the season's not even over. Yeah. So that's my Mount Rushmore. I got Mario, Gino, Marc-Andre, and Rick Kehoe.
Wow, Mike, I'll tell you the truth.
I can't. I did my homework. I never did my homework this whole semester. This is the only time I did homework.
All semester.
All semester, dude. I'm telling you. Yeah. Yep.
Well, here's what I'll do. I'll give that an F. Actually, scratch that. I'll give that a D.
Nice. Nice.
But here's why. Here's how I made my picks. I'm just kidding. That was fantastic. That was a fantastic Mount Rushmore. I don't think anyone's ever come up with. I don't even think they put that much thought into making the real Mount Rushmore.
I haven't put that much thought into anything I've done this whole semester.
That's true dedication.
Yeah.
Like I haven't seen anything like that from you in a long time. Here's my decision making. Sidney Crosby, GOAT. Gino, second GOAT. He's the BOAT, the best of all time. Matt Murray, back-to-back Stanley Cup champion. Jim Rutherford, made good trades.
Yeah, you're right. You won.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Dude, mine just looks real good, man.
It does.
I mean,
that's flawless. It's borderline flawless. Right
everybody
there.
knows the face of the Penguins. When you think Penguins, you think Rick Kehoe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I do now. Now I do.
Now you
I
know
bet
now,
the rest
yeah.
of the Penguins fans know because they're probably all watching this.
Now you do, yeah. But, all right, so that was good, dude.
That was perfect.
Next question.
Yeah, ask me. I'll answer it. I'll beat you this time.
Who was let's see. Let's go on
Sidney Crosby.
best player for the Penguins after he left the Penguins.
Oh,
You might know
Sidney
this.
Crosby when he had his concussion.
Nope, it was Ryan Whitney. Got traded. We brought it. Yep. Brought in Chris Kunitz. Won us 3 Stanley Cups.
Don't say that name.
Yeah, we brought in 3 Stanley Cups, baby. Chris Kunitz.
Please don't say that name ever again on this show. All right. So, going off my notes here, considering you stole mine to start the show, and that's why you're
Hey, if
reading
you
these
ain't,
two.
if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. I'm dishing out life
I
lessons
can't read your
and history
handwriting.
lessons.
I just can't read your handwriting. You're going to have to take that
I
one.
can't read it either, so yeah, you're screwed on that
All
one.
right, so playoff picture, putting bets down, $69 a piece. Him, me, go.
If I got $69,
If you got it, you don't have it.
when I pull out a loan for $69 and I got to tell them that I'm betting Jake Taylor for a team that I think is going to make the playoffs.
No, you just conference finals and then championship.
Oh, conference final.
No, who's making? I just want to know.
Yeah. Conference final, dude. I'm gonna go. Tampa.
Yeah.
Tampa's too good, dude. Tampa's way too good. Little wild card for you, Carolina. Goaltending hasn't been too bad. You know, they're always there. Carolina's always on the brink, dude. And I think if they pull it together, they always need that little spark. Look
They
at
got
Philly.
the celebrations now.
Philly, that's right. Yeah, I don't know what
Those are
that
whack.
Viking. Yeah, some skull action going on there. But dude, they just got to get a little bit of something, and they'll move up. And they just pulled out. It's
So
just
you
that
think
little,
they're going to win the Metropolitan in the
Yeah,
playoffs
they are.
in the postseason?
Oh, yeah.
Carolina versus Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
And then I also got Winnipeg, bunch of studs. Preds, bunch of studs. That's what I got. Preds taking it all. I got Preds
taking it all.
Yeah.
All right. Tampa Bay taking it all. It's not even like they're going to play anybody the whole time because they're just going to win. They're going to beat everybody. They're going to pull the Golden State Warriors of years past. They're probably going to, if they lose one playoff game, sure. That's no big deal. Other than that, they're going all the way and they're going to win the whole thing. And Kucherov's going to win the Conn Smythe and he's going to win the league MVP. And then
Okay, so
they're going to get Connor McDavid next year. And then the Penguins are going to beat him in the conference finals.
Okay, so agree to disagree. I like it.
Yeah.
So I got Preds. He's got Tampa Bay.
So I got 4 L's this show and you got 4 Dubs.
That's right, baby. Hey, that's all I do. That's all I do. Well, hey, we'll go We'll go deep into playoffs next week.
All right, yeah, we'll go so deep.
We're gonna go real
going to
deep
go
in the playoffs.
deeper than the big hits ever go on.
Can't wait.
Stay tuned, though. Elliot Hicks and Jake Slobodnik up next with MLB.
Welcome back inside the Big Hit for our MLB Mount Rushmore segment. I'm Jake Slobodnik, joined by the executive director himself, Elliot Hicks of the show, and we got some juicy takes as to who we think should be on the foreheads of the Stone Mountain. Anyway, Elliot, what we're doing is we're going to do our Pittsburgh Pirates, since we both love the team so much. We're going to do some Pirates Mount Rushmore, and then we're going to follow with the total MLB Mount Rushmore. So, Elliot, why don't you get started with the Pirates?
Right. This one will be a little more serious than our last segment, although it was quite funny. And while we both love the Pirates, I'm the only one showing it here today. So my first name for the Pittsburgh Pirates Mount Rushmore, very obvious, Roberto Clemente. 3,000 hits, a .317 career batting average. He was an All-Star 12 of his last 13 seasons and won a Gold Glove in 13 in a row. And his humanitarian efforts honestly make this a slam dunk. It's very simple. Second, I have Willie Stargell. These are in no particular order, by the way. It's not necessarily a 1, 2, 3, 4. He really personified the whole We Are Family era 1979 World Series win. He was also with the team in 71. And he was consistently good throughout really his whole career with Pittsburgh. 475 home runs. He played for the Pirates for 21 years and had 7 All-Star game berths and won the MVP at 39 years old in that 1979 season. Third, I have the best shortstop in MLB history, Honus Wagner. He's Pittsburgh-born, played 17 years for the Pirates, .328 career batting average, led the league at some point in 12 different stats. That's diversity as a player right there. Routinely would have multiple in the same year, things like OPS or the most walks or most RBIs, things like that. And he was inducted into the very first Hall of Fame class. So if you're going to be in the top 5 of the people who get in the Hall of Fame, you're going to make your team's top 4. And fourth, a guy who's still playing, Andrew McCutchen. He really brought Pittsburgh baseball back to life, even though, he never had a championship with us, never really. He doesn't have the legendary status in terms of statistics as the other 3, but in his 9 years with the Pirates, he won the MVP in 2013, the year that Pittsburgh baseball came back from the infamous 20-year losing streak, led the league in on-base percentage the next year, as well as OPS and OPS plus, made 5 All-Star games in a row, and while he kind of personifies this era of what if the Pirates had done more, or what if they had better breaks in 2013, 14, and 15, he still deserves the 4th spot on my Mount Rushmore.
And I like that pick. Andrew McCutchen really dug the Pirates out of the basement in the early 2010 era. So excellent list. And Honus Wagner, fun fact, he actually led the MLB in home runs with 9 back in the 1910s. I'm dead serious. I researched this and I'm like, wow. You look at it today, you could hit 40 home runs, but Honus Wagner, 9. My Pirate Mount Rushmore, it's a little bit different. Coming into this, Elliot and I actually had 3 of the 4 same picks, so I changed mine up a little bit. My first one's going to be Ralph Kiner. Pittsburgh always has a lot of greats. He led 300 home runs with the Bucks. He led the NL in homers for 7 of his 10 years in the Bigs, all with the Pirates, that is, with the way he led it. He's a 7-time NL MVP, a 6-time All-Star, and he kept the outfield strongly suited in Pittsburgh when Paul Waner entered his final years. So he kept it alive heading into the latter part of the 1900s. Next up, Dave Parker. You mentioned with Pops, keeping in the We Are Family segment, Dave Parker contributed just as much, if not a little bit more than Willie Stargell. 9-time MVP, 3-time Gold Glove winner, and Silver Slugger Award winner, both in varying years. Only one season where his on-base percentage was sub 300, and that was 1981, where he had a 287 on-base percentage, which isn't bad. And then he's also one of the strongest arms in the history of the franchise. We saw that he could use it from the wall, from short depth. So Dave Parker, 5-tool player. Next, Bill Mazeroski, the famous 1969 home run that won the Bucks the World Series. He's an 8-time All-Star. He won 8 Gold Gloves, 5 consecutively from 1963 to 67. He spent his entire tenure with Pittsburgh, and that's 17 years he spent in the Burgh. Not to mention, he came back as sort of an analyst thing here and there. And then finally, one a lot of people may forget, Bob Friend. 3-time NL All-Star, 56, 58, and 60. He's a 1955 leader in wins above replacement for pitchers, and that's a unique stat right there. He's a 1955 NL pitching title winner, and also in the 55, he had the lowest ERA in the NL with 2.83. So Bob Friend, bringing him back, one of the my 4th choice for the Pirates Mount Rushmore. So Elliot, moving on, let's move over to the MLB as a whole. What do you got?
All right, so I'll go first here. Again, in no particular order, I'll go with my first name as Cy Young. This dude literally has the best pitcher award named after him. He pitched for 22 years, had a WAR, wins above replacement, of 168. So for his teams, that means that he was 168 wins better than an average player, which that's a lot of wins. In that modern day, that's more than a full season of
Absolutely.
wins. 511 wins, the most all time. That record will probably never be broken. And his career ERA was 2.63. Nowadays, you have that in a full season, you had a really, really good season, anything sub 3. He had 263 for his entire career in 906 games. And he had a sub 2 ERA 6 times, and his career best was in 1908. His ERA was 1.26, and he was 41 years old. So there's my first name. Second name, Jackie Robinson. His stats aren't quite as flashy, but his impact on the game is definitely a lot bigger, breaking the color barrier. He had a .311 career batting average, Rookie of the Year his first season, and won the MVP 2 years later. Made 6 All-Star games in a row. And really, it's quite a shame that he couldn't start his MLB career until age 28. And he was so loyal to the Brooklyn Dodgers that when traded to the Giants, he just retired. He said, I don't want to play anywhere else. I'll go run chock full of nuts, you know? Coffee company that he actually did run after he retired, in case you didn't know.
Factoid.
My number 3 name is one of the best closer of all time, Mariano Rivera. A lot of people do not give relief pitchers enough credit in the game, but if you don't give any credit to them, you just don't know baseball nowadays. In the modern era, when you don't have starters pitch complete games all the time like you had in the days of Cy Young, and even a lot more recently than that, going back to the 70s and 80s, you still had guys pitch all the time. Relievers are very important, and Mariano Rivera was the best. Now, this is one of my favorite stats in all of sports. More people have walked on the moon than have scored against Mariano Rivera in the postseason. You see that as a meme all the time in the playoffs, you know. But it's just, when you really wrap your head around that, it's absolutely insane. And he did it all basically with one pitch, the cutter. He had a .221 career ERA, better than Cy Young, in 1,115 games. He only lost 60. So that means he lost less than 5% of the time. So 95% of the time you had Mariano Rivera on the mound, you were going to win the game. He has the all-time record in saves, games finished, and ERA plus, which is adjusted for ballparks. So that kind of takes out some of the Yankee Stadium factor that he may have had from giving up easy home runs. And he made 13 All-Star games. So Mariano Rivera is my 3rd name. And my 4th name, to all those people who are who really kind of disown the steroid era, you're not going to like this. Barry Bonds is my 4th name. He's the most feared hitter ever, steroids or not. And before steroids, or before when he was suspected of doing steroids in the early 2000s and whatnot, he probably already had a Hall of Fame career. 162 wins above replacement, 762 home runs. You're never going to see that home run record broken. His career slash line was .298, .444, .607, which is just crazy. And he led the league in walks for 12 seasons, including his final 2. And he had, of course, the record season of 73 home runs. 73. Very rarely have you seen anybody else come close to that. And he led the league in walks for every single season after, or full seasons that he played. He got hurt 2 years before he retired. He led the league in walks during, and he led the league in walks the season before that 73 homer year. And he had 6 seasons leading the league in each of on-base percentage, slugging percentage, and OPS. He's the all-time leader in home runs, walks, and intentional walks, and had 7 MVP awards. When you got to Barry Bonds toward his most feared stage of his career, bases were loaded or something, or anybody was on base, they would intentionally walk Barry Bonds instead of risking him. They would intentionally walk in a run instead of have him risk hitting a grand slam. So steroids or not, Barry Bonds is my 4th name.
I mean, it's fair enough. It's a good list. Barry Bonds a little bit iffy, but a lot of people have varying issues on that.
If you're not a steroid fan, you're not going to like it. But in terms of fan engagement, especially during that time, way up.
Well, my Mount Rushmore's a little bit different. I stayed more on the older side. My first player is Ty Cobb. As many of you know, the speed demon in the early 1900s. He's a 12-time batting title winner. Made the Hall of Fame in 1931, which is back in the heyday of the Hall of Fame. First to this day in all-time batting average with a .366 lifetime average. He's 4th all-time in stolen bases, 897. Plus, the rivalry he had with Honus Wagner was epic to watch. Next, I got the big train, Walter Johnson, surpassing 103 miles an hour no matter where he may pitch in the ballgame. He's a workhorse. He's got his velocity up. If you don't know Walter Johnson, I suggest Google it. He's early part of the 1900s as well.
Yeah, definitely one of the best early pitchers in baseball history.
Oh, if you don't believe me or Elliot, just listen to these stats right here. Career record of 417 and .219, ERA of .217. Nicknamed the Big Train for his size, build, and production on the field. This guy's a big guy. Ranks in top 10 in all major league pitching stat columns. What else can I say? Speaking of being speechless, 3rd player, you stole him from me, Jackie Robinson. Do I even need to go in depth with that? Absolutely not. And finally, I actually went to a manager for this side. I picked Billy Martin of the Yankees. A lot of people may disagree with that, saying that there may have been more successful Yankee managers, but I just like Billy Martin because of his character and his success while he was with the Yankees and other teams. He found success no matter what kind of team he was on. He was the 1985 AL Manager of the Year. He managed 3 All-Star teams, 77, 78, and 82, all with the AL. 77 World Series winner with the New York Yankees. Career record as a manager is 1253 and 1013. And he is one of the best productions from a player to a manager. We usually don't see that, but other than Alex Cora, Billy Martin is right up there with him. So that is my Mount Rushmore for MLB.
That's all for the Big Hit this week. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.